Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful webinar that we're going to be spending the next hour talking about how we can transform learning with Google Workspace. And we're going to be focusing particularly on advanced security insights and capabilities. So you are joined by the number of other people who are watching on YouTube. We would absolutely love you to introduce yourself. So please do so. Please put your name and where you're from in the chat. It'd be good for everybody else to see who's here. And no doubt you'll know one or two people who are here as well. Or if not, you'll make some new friends. Speaking of which, I can be your friend. My name's Dave. I am the Strategic IT Director for, nope, not that side of that side, Watergrove Trust. I'm also a Google Certified Innovator, that is at that side over there. And I was fortunate enough to be nominated as EduFuturist Network Manager of the Year, both in, again, that side, don't know my left from my right, in 2019 and 2021. So I've kind of been using Google's technology for 15 years or so. So I've been around the block once or twice, shall we say. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some of the features and functionality that are available through the paid editions of Google Workspace. And we're hoping that today we are joined by people who are working in Google schools or are considering making the move to Google, who are maybe administrators of Google Workspaces and want to know how they can get the most out of it, or who are school leaders or teachers who want to know what features are there so that they can then go and speak to their IT administrators to leverage the best and make sure that they are producing and making sure that they have absolutely everything that they need to do high quality lesson resources for their learners. Okay, before we kick off, I just wanted to say a big thank you to C Learning. C Learning have put this all together in partnership with Google. So it's really good for them to bring people together and to share best practice. It's something that they're really passionate about, and they've got a great community of educators working behind the scenes to share best practice, to share, offer advice to each other, and even just to be a shoulder to cry on. So yeah. C Learning, big friends of ours, and that's why we're all here today. So I'm going to start off for the first few minutes just going over a little bit of what we're talking about when we talk about Google Workspace paid editions. These slides are available publicly, and if you'd like to see your own copy with a few extra bonus slides, by the way, you can follow this link. It's goo.gul, which is easier to type than it is to say, /use-edu-workspace. And I'm sure that one of our wonderful friends at C Learning will put that link into the chat in YouTube as well, so that you can just click on it rather than have to listen to me talking about it. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits of those paid editions. So Google Workspace comes in 4 flavors, essentially. You've got your fundamentals version, which has always been and always will be free. And this is the majority, I have to say, of your functionality. But then over and above that, Google offers 3 paid editions. We have Google Workspace for Education Standard, which has got the advanced security and insights tools that we're going to discuss today. And we've also then got the Teaching and Learning Upgrade. The Teaching and Learning Upgrade has the tools that are used in the classroom predominantly, and they'll be covered on another webinar, more of which later. If we want something that sits across the 2 of those, though, we've also got Google Workspace for Education Plus, and this includes Education Standard, Teaching and Learning Upgrade, and even more features that are exclusive to Plus. So those are the kind of terminologies that we're going to be referring to today. Okay, so if I then move on to what security and insights capabilities are, as you can see, there are a vast number of them, and this isn't probably everything. There are probably more tools coming out almost every week, some of which are unique to Plus, some of them are unique to Standard, some of them are unique to Teaching and Learning. But if you go for Plus, you're going to get everything that Google has to offer for you. So we can start looking into these in a little bit more depth. I mentioned the teaching and learning capabilities, and this time next week, Sammy White will be presenting another webinar that's going to be focusing on those capabilities. So all the tools that are highlighted on screen at the moment, they're the ones that are going to be covered by Sammy in the webinar this time next week. So if you've not signed up for that already, we'll drop some links into the chat for that as well. Please make sure you go along to that, because Sammy and the team there are excellent and will give you a really clear demonstration as to what those tools can do for you in the classroom. But today we're talking about advanced security and insights capabilities, and they fall into 4 broad categories. So we've got the security dashboard, where we can see the kind of insights into what's going on. We've got the security health page, where we can get an indication of to anything that's not quite right within our domains. We've got the investigation tool, which allows us to dig deeper into what's going on. And then we have settings related to domain management and controls. So over the next few minutes, I am going to go at rapid pace through what some of these tools are, because we've only got a few minutes to introduce this. And what we really want to do is get into a discussion with some trusted colleagues around how these are used in schools. But for those of you who aren't familiar, this is what we're looking at. So security dashboard, we're looking at different tools, including an indication as to volume of spam that's coming in. So for somebody who wants to be able to control excessive and unnecessary emails, then this is where they're looking. It covers off suspicious attachments, malware, phishing attempts and spam, and it allows us to filter out a lot of those and to improve the way that we are managing our domains. Next from that, we have external file sharing. So we are looking there at preventing data going outside of our domain when we don't really want it to. So that's something that's going to be really beneficial for us when we're talking around sensitive content, for example, or making sure that we are adhering to data protection processes. So that's something else that Google can help us control. Third-party applications is another great option for us to use to control access to our domain's data. Again, talking about Data Protection Act, or what used to be known as GDPR, one of our responsibilities is to make sure that we are keeping our data only within our control and to within the visibility of organizations that we have data protection impact assessments with. So it's really powerful to allow us to see just where our data is being shared. And also controlling phishing attempts. So again, the ability for us to be able to understand when somebody is attempting to get into our emails, inboxes with content that isn't going to be particularly helpful or safe. The other thing we can start looking at is the security and health of our domain. So we get the image on the screen here showing messages and insights in terms of things that we need to be aware of as administrators. And when we're looking at best practices here, we're looking for potential risk areas. We're looking at how we can optimize the settings within our domain to ensure that we are secure. And we can jump very quickly and easily to both the settings and the support articles that Google produce. And that's one of the things that I think is tremendously helpful and valuable from Google, is the number of quality support articles that there are out there. It will show us any high risk areas within our domain. It allows us to quickly identify areas of potential risk and what to do about them. And then the other thing, that this is the thing for me that is worth the money alone, it's the investigation tool. And the investigation tool allows us to see any abusive material that's being shared, any files that may have been shared outside of the domain accidentally. It allows us to look at triaging emails. So when somebody has got a query around emails, maybe something's been sent out that shouldn't have been, it's a tool that allows us to jump in really quickly, take action on that, retract emails that haven't yet been opened, and just tidy up some of those gentle mistakes that occasionally are made within our domains. We're also, as I've mentioned earlier, able to check any phishing and malware emails. With Plus, we've got the opportunity to open every attachment in a safe sandbox before it's even delivered to the end user. So this is a tremendously powerful way of preventing any content that would be harmful to us from being opened. We can stop malicious actors, so we can see what's going on, and we can we can monitor which of our users are secure in terms of using two-factor authentication, and we can look at any failed sign-in attempts as well, which is also often a good indication as to what's going wrong, or a potential for a bad actor or a malicious actor trying to get access to our accounts. We can gain deeper security insights. So Virus Total gives us a report on any security investigation, gives us that overview of any suspicious files, URLs, domains, and allows us to take action both within Google and with other tools, for example, our filters and firewalls, to just close down those risks across our organizations. We can also prevent unsupervised virtual meetings. So we've all been through remote learning thanks to the pandemic, and in a number of schools I know that it was very important from a safeguarding perspective for us to be able to prevent any meetings that were going ahead without an adult present in that meeting. And Google allows us to control that as well. And then we have the other plethora, as we can see, of domain management controls here. I could really click on and go through every one of these, but as I mentioned at the beginning, we do have this slide deck available, full of links, full of guidance from Google. So if you look in the chat, you'll get the link to that, and if not, you can contact eLearning at the end, and they'll be happy to share that with you. But what we really want to do today is not just to listen to me prattle on about what's available. I want to get some insights from colleagues who I know and trust, who are able to use these tools on a daily basis. So I think we've kind of scratched the surface there in terms of what's available. But for me, I don't think that I can give you that full picture on my own. So today I'd really like to introduce you to 4 very trusted and respected guests who all work in education in the UK. So today we have Tara. So hi Tara. Tara is from Shipley College. Lovely to have you with us, Tara.
Hi Dave, thank you. Lovely to be here.
Do you want to just tell everybody who you are and what you're about in a few seconds?
I will do, but I've just lost the tab I was on. Yeah, it's all right. I'm the Learning Resources Manager, EdTech at Shipley College, and kind of head up Google and G Suite for teaching and learning, but also work really, really closely with the IT team. So hence, here I am.
Excellent, and a really valuable insight, and a great niche that you inhabit there, a professional niche that really interacts with the people who are both making decisions, using the tools and setting the policies. So brilliant to have you here, Tara. Thank you for agreeing to join us today. Next, I want to bring in Abid Patel, a good friend of mine who has been around using the Google sphere for maybe 1 or 2 years. I know he doesn't look old enough, but welcome, Abid. Thanks for joining us today, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Dave. Thanks for inviting me along. Yes, 2017, I think, is when our Google journey started with the now Google Apps for Education, as it was back then. So even before the G Suite days.
Excellent. And Abid, you're an IT director as well, aren't you? So you oversee IT for Newham Community Learning.
Yes, I'm the IT director for Newham Community Learning. We have 6 schools within our trust, and we've got an awful lot of Google related projects going on there. And yes, shout out to our fellow London 19 buddy Paul, fellow Google certified innovator. But it's great to be here.
Excellent. Thanks for agreeing to join us today. And if you think that wasn't enough, we've also got with us today Georgina Dean. So Georgina is many, many things. She is an EdTech stealth startup founder. I'm going to let Georgina explain what that means.
Oh, bless. Thanks for having me, guys. Basically, I decided I wanted to create something magical to support the education community globally. So I've gone out on my own and watched this space, so to speak. But as Abid and many of us on the call today, I'm also a Google Innovator trainer, and I've been supporting K-12 international schools and independent schools across EMEA for the last decade. So hopefully there's something in today's session for everyone. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, and really great to get that international perspective as well. I mean, obviously this is a discussion that's starting in the UK, but Georgina widens that scope to all around the world. That's a pretty awesome panel that we've got already, isn't it? Can we make it any more awesome? What do we think? Hang on a minute. Who's this guy? Ollie. We've got somebody representing Google as well. Ollie, lovely to see you, mate. How are you?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So, Ollie, do you want to introduce yourself for anybody on the call who's not aware of you?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Ollie. I'm the lead solutions engineer on the Google for Education team, looking after countries all across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, particularly from a privacy security element, integrating Workspace and Chromebooks. In a former life, I was a teacher, and also been through the Google Certified Innovator and Trainer programs like the rest of this wonderful panel. So thanks for having me. Happy to share some insights and answer any questions.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming on. And if there's anything that Ollie doesn't know and the panel doesn't know between us, then it's a really good question. So I would really encourage people to ask questions. Please, if you've got questions for the panel, add them as comments and we'll try to get onto them at the end. We've got a Q&A section built into the plan for the webinar. So if you do have any questions, please ask them and we'll throw them out to this very knowledgeable panel that we managed to assemble here today. So let's crack on then. So without further ado, I'm kind of going to just act as a bit of a question master for now and just trying to lean into the experience that we've got in the call and provoke some discussion. And I'd like to start off by asking, what features are important to you when you're choosing which licenses to buy? So let's go to who wants to take this first? Do we have any volunteers? I mean, Ollie, I'm going to exclude you from this one because if you're buying licenses for Google, then there's something wrong. But what about our other guests? Who wants to jump in there?
Go.
Go on, Tara. Tara, you've already got your mic unmuted. We'll start with you if that's okay.
Okay. So which licenses to buy? I think it was down to the engagement, basically, what you get with the Education Plus account, and that's we've got a lot of distance learning courses now, due to COVID, actually, because we got quite a lot of cohorts through that actually engaged better through distance learning than face-to-face. So with the breakout rooms and the Q&A, and also the plagiarism detection as well. And I asked the network manager for his kind of view on this, and he said Google does it for us. So I thought that was quite telling, but yeah.
I think that's really interesting, isn't it? And I think some of the things that you mentioned there, Tara, they're also interesting in terms of the teaching and learning tools that Sammy's going to talk about on next week's webinar as well. So you've led us in really nicely, and there was a little teaser to Sammy's webinar episode next week. So thank you for that. Abid, you were keen to speak as well. Can I ask you the same question? What is it that you think is important when you're deciding which licenses to buy?
I think pretty much reiterating what Tara said, one of the key decisions for us as a trust was some of the extra teaching and learning features that come with the Education Plus licenses. Breakout rooms, especially in Meet, were a huge win for those licenses. Obviously, for me as the IT director, some of the security features which we're going to be talking about a bit more in detail today were definitely key to the reason I wanted them, as well as those features in Meet like breakout rooms. But I think for any IT professionals looking to or trying to win over their leaders by getting these licenses, those teaching and learning features are pretty key in winning over those particular teams.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I mentioned in the introduction a little bit about just how much new comes out every week from Google. I mean, some of us here attend regular updates from C-Learning where they cover off all the new features that Google have released over the last month, and it takes a good hour go through them. So there is definitely new content and new abilities for us to use these tools coming out regularly, and that's both at that front end and the back end in terms of how whether it's for teaching and learning and useful in the classroom, or just for the security and for the peace of mind of us IT techies that are sitting in the cave in the basement trying to make everything work. So that's really interesting. Thanks, Abid. Georgina, what about yourself? I know it may not be your current life, but in past lives you've been involved in making decisions like this. What was it that kind of made you go one way or another with the Google licensing?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a previous former SLT and senior leader, it's really important as well that we're talking about the features that are going to support the infrastructure of the school. And so teaching and learning, absolutely great. And, that may have been a big open door entry into when COVID hit, but, sustainability is really, really important in an infrastructure, and with the economy, so is money, right, at the end of the day. And so talking about all of the pluses that come with the Google Workspace Plus editions for a smaller increase in price is going to be a really big win when you're talking about wider digital strategy. And also storage was a really big thing for us, as far as, well, across different schools that I've worked in, actually, because as I'm sure some may relate if there are people joining in from the UK, schools have been around for a lot longer than some of the international schools I've worked at in other countries. And so there is a lot of data that schools have, whether it be teaching and learning resources that you're migrating from your local network onto the cloud, whether it is accumulation of recorded lessons from the Google Meets and Google Classroom, whatever it may be. Storage is a really big factor. And so you definitely have a bigger bang for your buck when you can upgrade into an EduPlus license. So on top of all of the features that were shared earlier, I would add storage is a really big one, and then the security features, which I know we're going to talk about later, so I won't go into that just yet.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And
sorry,
go on, Tara. Yeah, please do.
Sorry, as Georgina and Avid were talking, I was just thinking about some bits. So when we did, we're I think either the second or the smallest college in England, and when COVID hit us, we were already using G Suite or Google Workspace, and I think we were on the basic version because we didn't need to go online. We were face-to-face, classroom, etc. And then when COVID did hit, I was tasked with which route are we going to take, because there was Zoom as well that was giving us the online platform, and Teams. So I did a cost-benefit analysis and had to look across everything to see where we were going to put our money, basically. And Google Plus, or the version that is equivalent back then, is where we went. So
there was a kind of a legacy package, wasn't there? And we, as Google have changed their structure now, we're kind of aligned to Google Plus. I know my organisation is just coming off that legacy package and moving on to Google Plus, so that we've got access to all the features. Ollie, is there anything that you feel that we need to add from Google's perspective, and if not, can I ask you maybe what do Google think are the key drivers to schools going down one route or another on the licensing decision?
Yeah, great question. So obviously Plus is where we focus a lot of our work to make sure everything is a complete package solution. And around the world, we see, a bit like Tara mentioned there, like consolidating your tech stack, we call it. So if you've got lots of disparate individual subscriptions, actually Plus is a really good way to bring all that together, whether that's a spam solution that you might have on an existing mail server, just making use of Security Sandbox in Gmail, for example, which is included in Education Plus, is a really good option. And what you'll see more is we've focused a lot in teaching and learning onto Meet features in the past sort of 2 or 3 years as a direct result of the pandemic. But we're starting to see way more focus put into really cutting edge Google Classroom features. So you'll see things like practice sets coming, adding in analytics for classroom leaders, the ability to go and visit other people's classes will all be bundled into Education Plus and Teaching and Learning. So watch this space for more to come. There's a few of my favourites that haven't been mentioned yet, but hopefully I'll weave them in later. That's all right.
So we're playing Ollie's Google Bingo today, and you just need to shout house when all your favourites have come up, Ollie. And if not, we'll come to you at the end to fill us in on anything that we may have missed. Thanks very much for that. So I think moving on to my next question, I'm interested to hear what other people are using particularly. So what are you using in your workplace, particularly from a security perspective? What is it? Which features of the Google Workspace paid editions are you using to enhance security? Now, I've got an obvious starting person here because Abid, your role as an IT director, I know that we have to spend a lot of our time ensuring that our organizations are safe. So what is it that you use on a day-to-day basis?
We definitely, and you hinted on it at the start with your introduction. I say that the thing that probably pays for the license itself is the investigation tool. That is a huge help with just, it's in the name, investigation tool, and a lot of our investigation usually runs around Gmail and trying to find trying to find what potentially malicious emails. We've done an awful lot of training with our staff to look out for phishing and spam messages, and we get a lot of reports with we get regular reports when a lot of our staff have marked something as spam. So we definitely use the investigation tool to look a bit more into that. But slightly left field with the one of the other tools that we use that I don't hear talked about much, which I think really helps us from a security login perspective, is we do use some of the Windows device management tools within the Plus licenses, and we all aspire for this single sign-on dream where we'll all have just that one username and password that we can carry everywhere we go, and it's a bit more difficult, challenging to get to that, but definitely we did a bit of testing last year with the Windows management, and that's been amazing to just have that seamless logging on to Google, logging on to your Windows device with your Google credentials, and then being seamlessly logged into Chrome and all of your Google services there as well, and then also being able to manage those Windows devices through policies, through the admin console, and having that all being able to manage all of that through the Chrome browser is just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think the Windows management elements are something that aren't necessarily immediately known about by people, particularly who aren't using the Google for Education tools regularly. And I noticed that we've got a few people on the call here already. Shout out to Terry here. Terry Dignam's joining us, who is predominantly working in a Microsoft environments, but I think we'll call him Google curious, shall we say. And I think it's great to highlight those areas where we can use Google's tools whilst we're still we're working in a Microsoft environment. So there are a number of schools that are hybrids and that are using Google and Microsoft meshed together in harmony, and it works tremendously well. I know that we can control group policies and so on and so forth through Google as well. And just to cross the streams a little bit here, I know we're on this wonderful event today, but I want to give a shout out to another event that Google are hosting in July, which is the Google Admin Summit. And I know that Roger Nixon is due to speak at that, and he's done some amazing work with managing Windows devices through the Google Admin panel. So I think if anybody's interested in learning more about that, sign up to that event that's running mid-July down at the Google offices. You'll see some cool environments as well. Get to meet some awesome people, some of which might be on the call today, and certainly hear very much from Roger around the successes that he's been able to have in managing that. So thanks for calling that out, Avid. Georgina, I'm going to come to you next. What are your thoughts in terms of how you have, either you yourself or your colleagues have worked to enhance security using the Google tools?
Yeah, so sort of adding on to a few different pieces Abid was mentioning, I supported IT teams previously, and we use different things like the Google Vault, and we use things like the investigation tool. Those are the two tools that are really important if we have a data breach, for example, and need to support in safety in that regard. Other things that we've needed to use are specific admin features. And this has been really great because we talk a lot about personalization in teaching and learning. And actually, IT teams can personalize the infrastructure to exactly how they would like to set up based on the needs of their users, their community. And so being able to set specific admin privileges has been really, really helpful. And it also really supports the sort of coaching, as it were, of your ed tech leads in the school as well. So if you have teachers or middle leaders who are interested in sort of having a bit more responsibility on the tech side of things, those admin privileges come in really handy for that. And I guess the other really big thing that we've had to use in schools is really it's a really simple feature actually, but it's really helpful when somebody accidentally sends an email that they didn't mean to send, or they copy and pasted a link that they didn't mean to send. You have the ability to increase your undo send up to 30 seconds in Google Workspace. But on top of that, we can then just very easily use the investigation tool to pull that back. So there's a lot of things that help the security immediately, and then you can also future-proof it by looking ahead. So those are really the big things. And the only other one that I really wanted to touch on that hasn't yet been talked about is the one-to-one devices. So we talk about how do we help a community, a school, a district, a trust, an academy keep safe. It's that ability of the Chromebooks and the ability to go one-to-one, the way an IT team can set up those Chrome policies. I know we talked about the Microsoft Windows before, but we haven't really much talked about that. And the amount of policies, and I'm sure Ollie could potentially tell me exactly how many are available. I don't know the number off the top of my head, that we can set to really, again, personalize that experience. You know, there are schools across the UK that are independent, and you have borders and international borders, and you're able to set the times of the internet, for example, for the Chromebooks, you know, on and off campus. There's just so many things. So not to take up all the time, I guess those are some of the big ones that I'll go with.
Brilliant. Thanks, Georgina. And Ollie, putting you on the spot, how many policies are we talking now?
At Chrome, I think there's 700 plus now, but I'll have to look across the admin console. Definitely more.
I know that's shot up massively in recent years, isn't it? And this is one of the reasons that I was speaking to people from C Learning last week around us asking C Learning to provide a security audit on our Google domains, because with all these new policies coming in, it's very difficult for us to be 100% certain that we've got visibility of all the settings, and also knowing that we've got those security things tied down. So that's something else that I recommend in terms of getting a fresh pair of eyes onto your domain and onto your settings, because sometimes we become a little bit familiar and complacent, don't we, with how we've got things set up. So I think that's something else that is well worth considering for people who have been using the admin panel for a long time. Tara, I'm coming to you. I've kind of forgotten my own question, but I guess we're talking about how different organizations use Google tools to ensure security. Is that something that you've come across either from an administrator's perspective or from an end user's perspective? If you had your bacon saved or your colleagues had their bacon saved by some of these settings?
Probably end user. So how many Chromebooks do we have? We maybe have 100, 150, 200. I can't count at the moment because we got batches through COVID. But our increase in Chromebooks is like 400%. So what we do in the Learning Resource Centre is the Chromebooks go out, and then when they're overdue, they get blocked from the admin panel, from the IT department. So that prompts the student to either come in or phone, and they'll say it's blocked, it doesn't work, but it's because it's overdue, and then it's literally a case of the IT department unblocking it, and then they can use it. But it's really handy just to get the students back in touch especially if they've left a course early. And sometimes the library doesn't get to hear about that. So that's very useful. And then the other thing is the third-party apps. So right at the beginning, when I was trying to encourage tutors to engage with G Suite, we had the third-party apps open so that tutors could see how they could use Google with other apps, and then we basically closed that down so that no more apps could be authorized. And then that came down to the, like you said before, the GDPR, data sharing.
Yeah.
And also we had a company come in and do like a health check on our Google admin, the back end, and they suggested that exact same thing to block all third-party apps. And just moving on from that, what we've done is created a cohort of learners that are specifically under 18, and if they are to use any of the third-party apps that we've authorized, then they need to have parental what's the word now?
Permissions.
That's it, parental permissions. And they are physically blocked from using the third-party apps unless our MIS system has that parental permission if they're 18. So that is really powerful.
So you're using Google tools to protect your physical assets in terms of your Chromebooks, to protect your data in terms of making sure that it's not going to sources that you're not authorizing, and also to protect your learners who may be under 18 from content that they are not authorized to view. So I think that's three brilliant examples as to where we can use these tools for security. Seeing as you gave such a good answer, Tara, I'm going to stick with you for the final question of this section. And I'm wondering what you think Google is particularly strong in terms of what features of Google do you feel are particularly strong, and how does Google support your college particularly well? And is there anything, to look at the other side of the coin, that Google doesn't do so well, maybe, that we can get Ollie to either squash some misconceptions about or take back to the powers that be at Google Towers to say, Tara's came up with a brilliant idea, let's build this?
Particularly strong in, I'm biased, so I'd say everything. But we don't just use Google for teaching and learning. At the start, it was just for teaching and learning. And as the college became more confident in its use and how secure it was with our data, we use it as our business tool as well. So across college, it's used for from finance to student services. We've just had GCSE exams. We've used it for GCSE exams and like organising all the exam sittings, the rooms, invigilators, you name it. So an integration of the apps basically to create this super, I don't know, super robot, whatever you want to call it, super machine. And yeah, we use it for we use it for everything basically.
And I think that's tremendously powerful, isn't it? Being able to rely on one platform for the majority of your needs when running any kind of business. It just increases efficiencies. And I think there's a lot of things that Google have introduced recently, small changes on the surface that lead to greater efficiencies. Even if it's just reducing one click in terms of how you view your data. I mean, Google's mantra is to organize the world's data. I'm sure I've got that wrong, but yeah, we'll come back to Ollie and test him out in a moment. So quick, Ollie, Google that whilst we're waiting. But it's around organizing data, and it's around making data available to the people who need it when they need it. And I think there's some brilliant examples there. Thank you, Tara. Georgina, what about you? What do you think that Google is particularly strong in, and is there anything that you feel it could improve or that is not there for you at the moment?
So I'm really actually pleased with the improvements that Google has done over the years. I was in Egypt at the time years ago. Does that show my age now? Hopefully not. When Classroom first came out and we started using Google, and you think about when we first started using Google Classroom and where it's come now, and the admin console back then and where it has come now, and the updates just keep coming. And I think that's really important. They take their user feedback very seriously. They have a lot of town halls where IT administrators as well as educators can go and give feedback. There's many communities. There's cloud communities. So if you're an IT administrator, you can join those communities, but there's also for teachers. So it's like a whole one-stop shop solution where teachers can also join Google Educator groups and get support on how to use teaching and learning effectively. Sometimes in past observations, schools could onboard with a new solution and the users wouldn't necessarily know how to do it. But as Abid, may attest to, some IT folks may not have the tools in order to train them. Abid's a superstar, as we already know, and so he has all of those abilities, but not everybody does. And so having communities available that can support you are really important. Other things that are really great are the feature updates. You have the ability in the admin console to do what's called a rapid release, where everybody can use the features immediately, but you can also do something called scheduled release in the admin console. And it allows you in your IT team to be able to drip feed new features so that people do have the opportunity to onboard them. Dave, you spoke earlier about having the test domain, and that's obviously very important, but also drip feed it so that you have the chance to train your staff, your educators, support staff, operational staff, and leaders as well. The other thing that I find is really good, although I can't remember the name of it, so I'm hoping Ollie can save the day on this one, because I only pull this report twice a year for schools. It's a report that gives you the complete data analysis for the Google Workspace apps. This has been really, really supportive for me in the SLT team when I'm reporting on how we're using Google Workspace and what we need to do to make our infrastructure better, safer, more efficient. It gives you the details of which apps are being used most frequently. I was just reading the pop. I wasn't sure if that was the answer. And you can basically, data is the most important part, as we all talked about before, but when you're supporting senior leaders, and if you are an IT director like Avid or anybody else who's invited to the senior leadership table to share data on your Google Workspace ecosystem, this report is really helpful. So Google invites us to pull it twice a year, and gives you all of the statistics, all of the pie charts, everything that's really colorful, and a really digestible report. There's nothing worse than senior leaders having to try to understand technical jargon, and so this is really handy. So maybe I pass it over to Ollie so he can save the day and help me remember what it's called.
Well, I think I might even be able to help out.
Oh, do you? Oh, go on then. Great.
Are we talking about the transformation reports? Is that the one
that's
we're
the
talking?
one. Thank you.
I got something right. I've proved my correct. Brilliant. And it is. It's got lots of pretty pictures on there. I think the key thing with that is that it should be involving senior leaders. It should be, when you're filling in the input for the transformation report, we should be involving senior leaders about what it is that they want to see. And I think that's when you get the most power out of that. Ollie, I've kind of stolen your thunder with the name, but I'm going to let you speak at depth, if you like, about how that should be used from Google's perspective.
No, that's great. I think Georgina's done a wonderful job there explaining. If you're happy, I can share some of my favorites. I think where
Please
Google
do, yeah.
is strong. So I unfortunately see in my role lots of occurrences of account compromises. Particularly young student accounts are very easy to target. Quite often the passwords are terrible. It's just like their name followed by a few numbers. And we see, unfortunately, that some bad actors can take compromise on an account and then use it to very quickly upload sometimes terabytes or petabytes of quite illicit material. And the problem with that is that you as a school are then owner of that. So the more that you can do to kind of support the user account credentials, the better. Now, two-factor authentication, I know I've chatted with Avid a lot about this. It's a wonderful thing. You should all be doing it. But actually, in reality, applying this to kids you've got in year 1 and 2 is difficult to do. There's a feature called context-aware access, which I know that the M word has equivalents, but I think in the Google land, it's very easy to go through and just with a few clicks implement this to just a group or an organization unit of users. So some things that we see happen really effectively all across Europe is for your younger students, maybe only allow them access to their workspace services if they're on a trusted device, or maybe only if they're on a school network, or even just broad enough to say within the country, right? We know that quite often attackers aren't always based within the UK, so restricting access to within the UK could be a small enough thing to block that and compromise that account there. On top of that, alerts are really powerful. If you have Education Plus as well, you can combine alerts with actions. So if you find a user is mass deleting thousands and thousands of drive files, maybe you've had an admin account compromised, you can choose to let Google automatically suspend that user. Just a nice way to maybe stem any potential attack that you have here. And then finally, data loss protection is a really incredible tool, which I think we haven't talked about yet today, but everyone should be implementing because it's included in Workspace for Education fundamentals. But we know that many schools do have valid needs to share documents with external users, but there are very simple rules you can configure to stop them sharing student health information or financial records or passport numbers or whatever it might be. So these are simple to configure, a few templates with just a few clicks that I think Google's very, very strong at.
And I think just to prove your point, here we go. Here's my what's sat on my desk now. Here's a number of YubiKeys ready to go out to new users, ready for September, all recently delivered from C Learning. Not that this is a sales pitch; it just happens to be sat on my desk. But I think that that implementation of multi-factor authentication, two-step verification within Google is so simple. Even my idiot's guide only ran to 10 pages, and that covered literally everything from blinking to inhaling to exhaling for our staff. So it was, and it's been proven to be successful. So yeah, excellent advice there and recommendations. Thanks, Ollie. Time's running away with us. It always happens when you get people who are passionate and knowledgeable together. So thank you for that that input up to this point, everyone. I want to just move on and think a little bit more about, we talked about security, and we talked about some of those bad actors that you experience, Ollie. Recent surveys have said that 78% have experienced at least one cyber incident. Thankfully, fewer have suffered significant disruption. That's around about 7%. But sometimes it's not external threats, it's internal threats that we have to protect ourselves against. I know that we had an issue at one of my schools whereby we had some year 7s going out and instigating a DDoS attack just through a website that happened to be hosted at the other side of the world. They can pay a few quid and all of a sudden their friend's Xbox stopped working or the school's network stops working. Thankfully for us, because we were using Google tools, we managed to see that early and to avoid the worst of that. But I'm also thinking about what have we got to experience in the future. So when we look at the future, what new technologies are coming and what are the potential advantages or potential threats to security of data and how we can abate them. And the two things that I'd like to get your input on, please. The two things that spring to mind when I'm thinking of the new technologies are obviously artificial intelligence, and we know that Google have got their own artificial intelligence tool, and they're looking at Google Bard. But how is the prevalence of AI going to affect your schools and your organizations, and how do we see Google supporting us with that? And secondly, something that I've only considered more recently, and I'm probably a little bit lax for doing so, is the backing up of our cloud data. We've always backed up our local data and stuffed it up into the cloud so that it's offsite, it's secure, it's got that air gap. What about backing up? We've reached that tipping point now where all our data is pretty much in the cloud. So do I need to be backing that up? And I'm interested to get people's views on that. I know there are tools out there that C Learning will be able to offer advice on. So we're talking tools like AFI, Backupify, Redstore, or even hardware products like Synology. What is it that you guys think are the potential advantages and threats of future technologies? That was a really long question. So, and seeing as I talked a lot, I'm going to go to somebody else who loves to talk a lot and start with Georgina on this one.
What are you trying to say there, Dave?
I will just leave it to you to interpret that, Georgia.
All right. Well, I'll keep it short. And it really depends. Like, it's different in every country, but something that has had really good reviews here and had some great success is Druva. That you can get here. As you said, also C-Learning have options, and there are many others, but Druva has been really successful to back up the cloud, and it's done daily, where I have worked previously. I also think other things that we need to do, as Tara, I think it was Tara mentioned previously, was the third-party apps and the extensions. I foresee, and again, that's just a guess because I'm not an engineer or anything, but I would imagine that AI could easily get into extensions and third-party apps that are installed inside the domain. So we talked about shutting that ability down, but I think that it might become harder in the future for IT admins to understand which ones are safe or not. And I think that it may be easier for AI programs to hack things like passwords that Ollie talked about earlier as well. So I think that all of these different things that Google Workspace already do right now, and Ollie can disagree with me if he wants, but I think that anything Google, not Google, I think that could be a potential risk that AI could potentially overcome. Now, Google, I will back Ollie up on this. I remember having a chat with him at BET, and he, we were all excited. Oh, let us try, Bard, etc. when it was still in beta. And he was like, no, we have to get this right. We absolutely cannot release it until we get this right, ethics and everything. And I want to just, shout out Ollie and Google Workspace and Google generally for that. I think that there's been some thoughtful considerations into that. And I think we can all take that on board as IT teams and also senior leaders or just educators in general, and make sure that we are doing our due diligence to vet and verify and validate everything that we want to bring into our network and our infrastructure, so that we are avoiding any potential incoming hacks, as it were, from AI.
Brilliant, thank you. Ollie, did you want to respond to that at all at this point, or should we save you to the end and give you your big final moment to see whether you've called bingo?
That was great, Georgina. Thank you. Yeah, we have AI principles. I'll put the website in the YouTube chat.
Awesome, thanks, Ollie. Tara, can I come to you for the same thoughts in terms of what the future holds in both opportunities and threats?
I probably would say exactly the same thing as Georgina. AI is just, we've just skimmed the surface. I think I told you last week that I ran a session with all our tutors on AI and used Google Bard, and some of the tutors were just blown away because they hadn't ever seen anything like that. And I explained that I'd created the session using ChatGPT because Bard hadn't been released. So, and then we used Bard on the day because I knew that everybody would be able to access it without any issues because it was a Google product. Whereas ChatGPT, I was not confident with everybody being able to access it at the same time, etc. So that session was just amazing, and I think everybody's gone away and probably started using it. I've used it today to create a survey on a video learning platform. So going back to what Georgina said as well, is the security behind that, and again, the third-party access and the details, the data, and I think also, lastly, is just Google to have our backs, really. They're helping us access our AI, but we need to rely on them to help us navigate that minefield and be secure.
I think that's a fair point. Abid, can I come to you for the same question, and anything you want to pick up on there from what the ladies have shared?
Just following on a bit from what Georgina hinted about with the extensions and checking the data protection regulations and things like that. AI has made it a lot easier to to code your own extensions. You can ask ChatGPT or Bard to write you certain app scripts and little snippets of code, which you can then roll up into an extension. And I think it's really important that as Google admins, we ensure that we're making sure that we're locking down the admin console so that we can only install only admins can push out extensions, having made sure we've done all of our due diligence in place, and then also making sure that we're only installing extensions that are from the Google admin, the Chrome Web Store. But I think there's a lot of positive potential out there, but like pretty much the both Tara and Georgina mentioned, it's about ensuring that we've done all of our internal planning and organization and due diligence around AI, and blocking is not the answer. I would definitely like to say that. I think AI is here. AI is here to stay. It's constantly evolving, and we need to engage with it. But we just need to be aware of these features and the features that are coming. And with some of the AI features that were announced at Google AI that are Google I/O that are inevitably coming to Google Workspace, those features are going to be extremely, extremely useful within Google Workspace. But there's a lot of considerations that we need to make in schools with regards to that. And then just a quick note on backups as well. I think that it is becoming something that we do really need to consider within schools. I know that we use the RPA protection insurance, and in terms of their cyber protection, they're requiring schools to back up all of their data, including cloud data. So I think that's definitely something to get in touch with C Learning about. I know it's something that we're definitely looking at our trust.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Abid. Just for those of us who are still with us on the live YouTube feed, thank you so much for sticking with us for this. I have been asking regularly via the banners for any questions. We have a grand total of 1 question at the moment. So before we come to that, I'm just going to drop into Ollie and figure out. I've got 2 other things that I think might be on Ollie's bingo card. The first one is the importance for some schools, or for some schools in some regions, to be able to store their data in certain locations, and that's something else that Google Plus offers us. It's the opportunity to have data regions and to store data in an area that is compliant with the law within your school's location. And the other thing that I don't think we've mentioned, which isn't really a Google Plus thing, but I'm surprised that none of us got around to this, was talking about Chrome OS Flex and the ability that Google provide us with through that simple utility to turn any old device that was on its last legs into essentially a Chromebook or a desktop version of a Chromebook. So I think that's something else that I wanted to call out. I'm wondering, Ollie, what we've missed from your bingo card. What else should we have spoken about today that we haven't done?
Pretty much covered it. I would say, just when it comes to backups, don't forget that everyone has access to Google Vault at no additional charge. It's a free built-in retention tool, which can be incredibly useful even in the event of a ransomware attack. You can actually identify and take your files back from a given point in time before an attack started. The benefit of having a backup solution is the speed with which you can actually restore that directly back into the user's drive without having to export it and then give it back to the users to re-upload their correct copies. But you're pretty well covered from everything's gone wrong perspective, but a backup solution can really help you. You've had some really great discussions about AI. Google's approach is to make sure we really purposefully integrate it into tools that's actually going to make it beneficial and useful for everyone using them. Bard is great, and generative AI is the vogue thing in the minute. Very fashionable, but I think there's actually more there. And one thing to note is it's really expensive, generative AI, and so schools, I think, might be priced out at the Gen AI kind of market for some time. I think as these models decrease and the actual processing power required to do some of the computational thinking comes down, it's still a bit of a pipe dream. I can't see anyone having a full AI school tomorrow. but I don't think it'll be too long. You should all definitely, it's not Google, but definitely go and watch Sal Khan from Khan Academy's TED Talk, because it's very good, talking about what you might be able to do there. But no, I think we've pretty much hit my bingo cards today. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So we've kind of, I popped up on screen Steve's question around the backups, because I think you were talking about that at the time. The other question that we've had is coming from Stuart, and that's probably going to be going to you, Ollie, as well. So it's how much control are we going to have over Google Bard when it comes to Workspace, and will we be able to apply DLP type rules to the information being passed to the AI tool? I guess the first caveat to that one is, will Bard be coming to Workspace?
Oh, good question. So the Bard is it's a front end to an AI model, right? And you can actually already disable this or enable this for users. There's something called Experimental Labs. It's an additional service. So you can turn this off or on for your Workspace for Education users. Hopefully that answers that. And then when it comes to generative AI coming into Workspace, there's already some element integrated there. Google's been an AI company since 2015. You might see that it's been automatically finishing your emails for you in the past few years. But to get the full generative stuff, that's coming into something called Duet AI, which, as Avid mentioned, we announced at I/O recently, and there'll be an additional cost to that. And as I said, it's not super cheap, unfortunately. We already give a 98.6% discount on Education Plus compared to the enterprise equivalent, and there's a lot of technical infrastructure cost on Duet and some of the Gen AI stuff. So watch this space, Stuart. I wouldn't get too excited about Bard and Duet just yet. And please make sure that if you are using additional services, speak to partners like C Learning. Make sure you've done due diligence. You've got parental consent. It's really super important that you've got your own DPIAs and all that good stuff in place.
Awesome. Thank you, Ollie. And thank you, everyone, for firing in your questions there. I think that's one of the benefits of having such a great panel, is that the people tend to sit there and listen rather than think of questions. Speaking of sitting there and listening, I'm going to bring one final person in here, and that is Chris from C Learning, who has been very patiently sitting there and listening to our discussion today. So Chris, just before we end, just wanted to hand over briefly to you to give C Learning's perspective and some indication as to how you can help people who've been viewing this webinar.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Dave, I actually drank all my water about 1/4 trying to keep my mouth, lubricated. I've obviously not quite got that right, but yeah, great to see everybody on the call today. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the Software Solutions Manager for C Learning. I was brought in a couple of years back in the G Suite Enterprise for Education days to lead on Google Workspace. Really great to be on the discussion today, and some absolutely fantastic pointers from our panel here. My contact details will be available in the chat stream. I'm also going to be sharing my calendar invite as well, so please feel free to reach out to me. We will, of course, be sharing our details directly following on from this webinar regarding the Google Workspace for Education 60-day trial for 50 users. Just on that, it's a great place to get started. Something we highly recommend, of course, taking a trial out, dipping the toe in the water, as it were. We offer a fully supported trial from getting those initial licenses set up right through to advice on security and administration, which has been covered today, as well as the teaching and learning aspects of Education Plus. Yeah, we'll basically be with you every step of the way. By the end of the trial period, with our help, you'll be in a position to make an informed decision on your best path forward with Google Workspace for Education. C Learning believes very strongly in this platform. Google Workspace for Education is an incredibly powerful and ever-evolving platform, something that brings tremendous opportunities, and we've seen this with people who've signed up to it and how that development has happened over the years. And it's something that you can definitely benefit from, both yourself, your staff, and I guess most importantly, your students. We've gone on that journey with hundreds of schools, colleges, and universities, and we're looking forward to sharing the same journey with yourselves. So absolutely superb. From C Learning's perspective as well, Dave and all our guests on the call today, absolutely fantastic for giving up your time. We greatly appreciate it. We couldn't do this without you. Dave, I'll hand back to you. Short and sweet from me. I'll hand back to you, Dave, just to wind up.
Thanks very much, Chris. Appreciate that. And Chris's details are in the chat, and anybody who registered to watch this webinar, I'm sure Chris will be following up with the links for this, and also any other links that are relevant and that we've put in the chat and on the tickers at the bottom of the screen today. All that remains is for me to wrap up and say thank you very much to everyone who's given up the time to spend this last hour with us and learning about some of the options that we have in terms of Google's paid licenses and the way that we can apply those to really advance the way that we look after our security within our Google domains. I also need to say thank you, a massive thank you to the guests today. So thank you to Tara. Tara's been fantastic in giving us that viewpoint from somebody who's not just a technical. She forms a bridge, I think, between the geek speak of myself and Abid and the actual users. So Tara's role there is invaluable. So thanks to you, Tara. To Abid, Abid as always comes in. No matter what it is, whether it's his overnight success stories for being able to talk about any kind of cybersecurity event, or it's his extremely patient approach and long time knowledge built up of Google over the years. So thank you for that. Georgina, where to start with Georgina? She has many hats, as well as a beautiful piano behind her in the room that she's inhabiting at the moment. So yeah, I did that as well. It's really difficult to work out where your left and right is, isn't it? So thanks, Georgina, for coming and bringing your international experience and also your wide experience of looking at these tools from different perspectives. And of course to Ollie, you know, we get to stages where we need a true expert in the room, and Ollie has provided that expertise. So thank you so much for Ollie for representing Google and for bringing your calm approach and your depth of knowledge to us. Finally, thanks to Chris and the C-Learning team for putting this on. I really hope that people have taken something from this webinar and learned something, or if nothing else, had their interest piqued, and they can then go ahead and do what it says at the bottom of the screen and get in touch with C-Learning for more information and to get any answers to questions that we may not have covered today. So thank you so much for everyone for coming along. Don't forget, next week Sammy will be doing the teaching and learning version of this, so register through C-Learning for next week's webinar. Same time, slightly different place in that you need a different URL, but you'll get to it through the same place. And if you're struggling for that, email connect@clearning.net and they will be able to give you the details. Thank you very much to everyone, and I hope you have a lovely sunny evening. Take care.